Harmony family. Today we're going to be talking about 2022 and the year of the water tiger. So I know there's going to be a few of you that are skeptical about, Chinese astrology and things like that, but I just want to kind of give you guys a reminder that just like the sun and the moon, right, we know that these two planets influence us and can affect us here on Earth. So, for example, the sun gives us vitamin D, it can affect our mood, and the moon is in charge of the movement of the tides. So it's not totally unreasonable to think that the larger outside planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, etc., even though they're further off, that they don't influence us in some way. Even though they're further, they still have a subtle influence on our life, and that is basically what the study of astrology is about. The basic principle of Chinese astrology is that there are 4 pillars. So each pillar represents something. There's the year, month, day, and hour. So when you go ahead and look at the chart or the pillars for 2022, we see that all 4 pillars are yang pillars. So we've talked about in previous videos how yin is more of the restorative or resting, retreating element or aspect, whereas yang is more forward, it's aggressive, it's going. It's more of the image of a car with no brakes. So it's kind of going to go off the tracks a little bit at some point, and there'll be collateral damage. So as a collective idea that this year is going to be very fast and busy, it'll be wise to go ahead and maybe rein yourself in a little bit. When things go too fast, right, they get damaged. So it'll be a good idea to take time and really sit on things that are going to impact your life or, life-changing decisions. Take a day, take a week even, to sit on these ideas and make sure they're really the correct ones that you should be taking. It's also a good idea not to take any unnecessary risks. When we look at the 4 pillars for the year, we see that 3 of these pillars are actually wood pillars. So I've seen a lot in other videos talking about, the year of the water tiger, water, water, water. And water is the second strongest element in the chart for the year, but I also want to remind you guys of the 5 elements or the 5 phases, right? So what does water do in that cycle? After water comes wood. So water is basically watering or nourishing wood. So we have this idea of a very wood-heavy year. And some of the things that wood represents in Chinese medicine are things like power, rank, and position. So I think we'll see a lot of potential, unfortunately, for corruption and abuse of power. So not to get doom and gloom, I do want to pose another side to this, is that, it's kind of like a balloon. As we have this growth, a very strong energy supporting corruption and abuse of power, we're also eventually, probably more towards the end of the year, we're going to see a little beginning of what will be basically the balloon popping. So one of the things about Mother Nature is that it always seeks to balance itself. So as this wood energy, becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, eventually it's like a wave. It's going to tip the scales, and I think we'll start to see a beginning of more of an uprising in the people to restore balance and mitigate some of the abuse of power for the year and corruption. One of the ways we can already see this taking place is by the large disparity between the rich and the poor, and I think this will continue to grow. We see this, with food prices and things, continuing to skyrocket already. So I think that will, unfortunately, continue to escalate, but hopefully we will see a turn in tide on that. So one of the animals that the wood element represents in Chinese medicine is the tiger. So what's interesting about the tiger is that the tiger is known in Chinese culture to be called upon by the Jade Emperor, right, to exorcise demons or to drive evil out. So it's really kind of like, again, the idea of, even though we'll see this strengthening of corruption, eventually it's going to seek balance and hopefully, by sometime at the end of the year, drive out some of the evil. Again, but of the 4 pillars, 3 of them are wood, and wood also can be represented by the animal, the tiger. So when I see this 3 tigers in the chart, the tiger is it's a wild animal. Even when tamed, they're a bit unpredictable, right? They're not really an animal that are completely tameable and you can trust yourself around all the times, because you know that there's potential for any minute it could, flip on you and really harm you. So I kind of had that energy overall for this year. The idea that, always kind of watch your back. It's like I said, it's going to be a very quick and kind of chaotic, year. So be careful about who you're trusting, who you're around, things like that. So just like the tiger can, flip at any moment, you really want to keep a cautious eye out, and be aware of, your surroundings and your environment, the people you're dealing with. Just keep that kind of, watchful, cautious eye out for the year. Wood is also related to the wind. I see this idea of, getting blown around, and it's very blustery, right? It's going to really just shake things up. That is one of the things that the wood element represents, is wind. So another thing about the water tiger chart for 2022 I noticed is that there are hidden elements of fire. So it's not completely devoid of fire, but it is completely devoid of metal. So metal represents justice, loyalty, as well as intelligence. So these are really going to be elements that are lacking this year. So really just a good idea to keep that in mind, that, people aren't going to be necessarily acting out of their intelligence this year, and maybe more of reckless or careless emotion. One thing that I wanted to touch on very, very briefly is the Feng Shui for the year, the flying stars. So the biggest thing that stood out to me was that the 5 yellow star is back in its home position. So what this signals to us is the fact that this is a bit of a reset year, if you will. And I feel like, the reset, if it's the Great Reset or whatever, has gotten, a very bad rap for good reason. But, yeah, I think that maybe that word was not chosen at random, because this year, like I said, with the 5 back in the home position, where it usually, travels through different sectors, when it goes back to home, this is really a year where everything's going to be, it's like, a video game, right? If all the players get reset and they're back to the original or true self, who is that? And I think we can see that a lot, even in the people around us. But this is really going to be a year where the truth comes out, people's true colors come out. Since everyone's reset, right? The people who have the knowledge and have been putting in the work, right? That's going to be known. And the people who are not, who haven't been putting in the work, or, it's been more superficial or facade, they're really not going to be benefited this year, because there's not going to be any hiding. Like I said, this year is going to be very quick and chaotic. And when we have that element of a reset, if you are not prepared, then, if you haven't been putting in the work, you're not going to be rewarded. So that's what I have for the 2022 Chinese astrology for the year. I just wanted to, remind everyone that there's no good or bad year, right? There's only certain energies, and then we as humans, we attribute certain judgments upon them. So even with negative things, if you can find a way to use that in a positive way, that's what you should do, right? So if it's a reset year and you haven't been putting in the work, then maybe it's time that you go back and revisit something, right? Something that you are very knowledgeable about. Or on the flip side, if you have been putting in the work, then use that to your advantage. Maybe it's time to make that career change that you wanted to take. These are just a couple things to keep in mind. Like I said, there's no good or bad in Chinese medicine, and it's really about how you use the energy. Buckle up and try to put the brakes on a little bit this year to mitigate our damages, and we will navigate this year the best we can. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. So let me know below in the comments what you guys think about the strengthening wood element for this year. And I will go ahead and leave you guys with the image that I have for 2022. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.